In the world of blockchain, where decentralization promises freedom and equality, shadows of idolatry, cults, and divisive figures loom large. Picture this: Bitcoin and Cardano, two titans of cryptocurrency, driven by intense loyalty, both rightfully celebrated for their technological prowess, but are often accused of resembling cults more than collaborative networks. Many share the opinion that charismatic leaders and influential voices in both communities dominate the discourse, leading to echo chambers where dissent is stifled and truly decentralized governance is claimed to be compromised by idol worship and gatekeepers. But what if blockchain as a system could transcend this? What if the power of blockchain could be reclaimed by its community, steering away from these social pitfalls? Moreover, what if this has been built into the roadmap and vision all along? Today we will delve into the heart of these issues, explore the impacts of these social constructs, and reveal the pathway towards genuine, liquid, and representative democratic governance in the blockchain space. Stay tuned, because what we're about to discuss might just change your perception of two of the most influential blockchain systems in the industry. Welcome back to Cardano Insights and part 3 in the series Cardano for Bitcoin, where we analyse criticisms, misconceptions and popular narratives in the view to find valuable common ground between two hugely influential blockchain communities. In today's episode, we delve into divisive figures, accusations of cults, the worshipping of idols, and unpack more fears of centralisation that are thought to be compromising the true principles this industry was founded upon. Just before we dive in, if you haven't already, be sure to catch up on the first 2 installments of this series. It's highly recommended for a full perspective on this big blockchain topic. Both will be linked in the video description below, or you can navigate to the main Cardano Sapien YouTube page. They don't need to be watched in chronological order, so for now, let's get straight into part 3. Now, I think it's fair to say Satoshi Nakamoto and Charles Hoskinson are two blockchain founders who have contributed immensely to the development and adoption of the cryptocurrency space in extremely contrasting ways. Satoshi is largely idolized for creating Bitcoin and for his seemingly selfless departure, elevating him to mythical status. Despite this idolization, many in the Bitcoin community find tremendous issue with Charles Hoskinson and his perceived position of authority as the project founder of Cardano. There is a narrative that Charles has cultivated a community who partake in idol worshipping, enabling him to become extremely wealthy, to which many suggest is his main motive for launching the Cardano blockchain. This narrative is often suggested to be a major drawback for the adoption of Cardano and its technology, often weaponized in any Bitcoin or Cardano debates. But is this criticism fair? How does it stack up against what we can observe in the Bitcoin community, and should the presence of idol worshipping be a reason not to participate in a system that's making significant strides toward full decentralization? So let's break it down a little. The concept of worshipping idols is a social construct that inherently involves the uncritical reverence and elevation of certain figures, objects, or ideas to an untouchable status. Blockchain, by contrast, is meant to embody principles of decentralization, transparency, and the democratization of power and information. Its very purpose seeks to eliminate single points of control or failure, distributing authority across a network in a completely trustless manner. On the face of it, this ethos stands in stark opposition to that of idol worship, which centralizes focus and power. Blockchain's core values encourage scrutiny, collective decision-making, and the questioning of centralized authorities, making it fundamentally incompatible with the idea of worshipping idols. However, blockchains are as much social systems as they are technological, and we can find many examples of idol worship amongst all communities in this space. If you are to analyse the quality and merit of blockchain systems objectively, then you must separate the scientific and social constructs, remove yourself from the worshipping or criticising of project founders, to instead make impartial judgment on the technology itself. But this is easier said than done. Naturally, humans are inclined to engage in idol worship and bias due to a range of psychological and social factors. It's difficult to escape this. Psychologically, idol worship fulfills a need for security and guidance, offering a tangible focus for devotion and trust in times of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It also satisfies a deep-seated desire for connection to something greater than oneself. Socially, idol worship fosters a sense of community and shared identity, providing common symbols and narratives that unify groups, something we see right across the cryptocurrency space. This behaviour often leads to elements of tribalism, and depending on your vantage point, is reinforced by mainstream media, who often spin narratives in a deliberately positive or negative light, depending on their own agenda. This perpetuates the cycle of veneration across blockchain communities. Ultimately, idol worship serves as a coping mechanism and a means of creating social cohesion. It's the human element in blockchain that has introduced this factor. In the case of Bitcoin and Cardano, idol worshipping exists whether or not the founder remained completely anonymous, ultimately disappearing from this space altogether, or became a very public figure, still very much actively involved in the advancement of this industry today. Either way, it can be Satoshi Nakamoto or Charles Hoskinson. Both are visionaries, both share many common principles, and both are idolized amongst large parts of the community surrounding the systems they created. If you're a blockchain enthusiast, then it can't be argued we have to be thankful for and respect Satoshi's contribution to this industry. However, large parts of the Bitcoin community praise Satoshi as some kind of saint, celebrated as the creator, his seemingly altruistic exit from the space, and the untouched 1 million Bitcoin wallet viewed as a monumental gift to humanity. But here's where it gets a little problematic. To assume Satoshi left this space completely and chose not to cash out on the 1 million Bitcoin as a gift to the world is, in my opinion, rather naive. I mean, it's certainly possible, but far from conclusive. The idea that Satoshi left the ecosystem and burnt his keys to lock in value and enhance the security of the network is just a hypothesis, with no evidence other than the radio silence and the fact that the 1 million Bitcoin remains inactive to this day. These factors feed into the Bitcoin narrative that blockchains should not have founders, and founding entities should certainly not be getting rich off them. Remember, there's always the possibility that one day Satoshi could return and access this wallet. But Bitcoin maximalism will tell you that Satoshi's approach is the only credible one, and founders such as Charles Hoskinson, who have made a fortune off the back of the Cardano blockchain, only incentive is monetary gain. This narrative portrays Satoshi as some kind of martyr and Hoskinson as an individual who only wants to become rich. But the truth is, we do not know conclusively why Satoshi left and what it remained dormant. There are too many possibilities or potential answers. He may have died, lost access to the keys, or as some messages from the Bitcoin Talk forum suggest, he could have been afraid of prosecutors coming after him, considering the disruptive nature of Bitcoin and claims of illicit activity it was used for in the early days. If he is indeed alive, for all we know, he could be far more active in this space than a Bitcoin romantic would like to believe. Why would we assume that just because his known wallet remained untouched, that he didn't have multiple wallets and hasn't already profited massively over the years? I mean, even the average blockchain user today has more than one wallet. In fact, I would say that it's highly likely that Satoshi has indeed benefited from the financial system he created, and has done so in a completely anonymous fashion. The real question should be, is this even a bad thing for a blockchain founder to profit from their vision coming through to fruition? I'd say no, and in the case of Charles and Cardano specifically, we have to be very careful judging it purely from a historical Bitcoin perspective. See, Charles is not a charity but has an undeniable vision for blockchain, and IOG, his company, are a software development firm in the business to profit. Is it such a huge issue that an alternative system, arguably that's technologically superior to Bitcoin, is being built, and the minds behind it may also want to profit from its success, or at least require a far larger budget in order to execute? This is where it comes down to trust, risk tolerance, and trade-offs. If Cardano was only ever about making money, why did Charles himself invest a large amount of his personal wealth into funding this endeavor? He was already extremely rich through Bitcoin. If it was only ever about getting rich, the roadmap and design architecture of Cardano seems like a very risky, long-term, and extremely convoluted project to achieve this. There are plenty of alternative fast-to-market blockchain architectural approaches that could have achieved this so-called get-rich-quick scheme far easier. It's a reasonable observation that in the case of Charles, this isn't about money. His vision for Cardano is about not being satisfied with Bitcoin, and was driven to build a system that incorporates the missing features needed to truly become a world financial and social operating system. This is something we will unpack in more detail later in this series, but to believe Charles' motives are only about money and not about giving this system to the world is way off the mark when considering what Cardano has achieved and the approach it has taken to do so. It's the very fact that Charles has been bootstrapped to see out the project roadmap that means we are getting a far more advanced system to Bitcoin in return. The years of resource-intensive research and engineering is the most significant trade-off in play. We don't have to like the fact that founding entities have been handsomely bootstrapped and have profited from Cardano to be supportive of the wider mission, united in a common goal. As a result of this, we are blessed with innovations that are at the cutting edge of this industry. The Cardano community are in essence, or at least in part, responsible for the funding of this development so that it has the best chance of realizing a truly decentralized financial operating system and execute what is probably the most ambitious roadmap in all of blockchain. Ultimately, Satoshi Nakamoto and Charles Hoskinson are both idolized figures within their respective communities, yet their paths to reverence contrast drastically. Satoshi is revered for creating Bitcoin and then disappearing, leaving behind a dormant 1 million BTC wallet, seen as a selfless gift to humanity, symbolizing decentralization and a lack of personal gain. Conversely, Charles Hoskinson, very much in the public eye and has evidently profited from Cardano, is admired for his grand vision for blockchain, work ethic, and dedicated approach deep-rooted in scientific research with an unwavering determination to uphold the founding principles of this industry. Both figures are idolized due to their visionary contributions, reflecting a paradox in blockchain communities where decentralization ideals coexist with the human tendency toward idol worship. Whilst we can draw comparisons between them and have preferences regarding their involvement, becoming fixated on project founders takes away from where our attention should be focused, and that's on the technology itself. The worshipping of idols has naturally resulted in accusations of cult-like followings amongst several cryptocurrency communities, none more so than Cardano. The outside perception of mass idolization of Charles and unwavering support towards the project's mission and technological innovations has been weaponized, enabling the Cardano cult narrative to gain significant traction. Any social group with an extreme devotion to a particular set of beliefs, practices, or leader are often labelled a cult and are characterised by isolation from mainstream society, psychological manipulation, and an authoritarian structure. Due to historical instances of abuse, social isolation, manipulation, authoritarian control, psychological and financial exploitation, all of which evoke a sense of danger and harm, the word cult carries with it a whole host of negative connotations. Often used as a tool to smear or discredit an alternative cryptocurrency and the communities that surround them, labelling a following a cult can be extremely detrimental for adoption and alters the perception newcomers may have when entering the space. In my observation, however, all prominent cryptocurrency communities display elements of cult-like behaviours. This is not an exclusive characteristic to Cardano. This becomes problematic when the unquestioning loyalty expressed in idolising key figures such as founders or prominent advocates fosters an environment where followers accept their views without critical analysis, leading to groupthink and the marginalisation of dissenting opinions. Charismatic authority with their influential personalities can wield significant power, directing the community's beliefs and actions. Their charisma often translates into unquestioned authority, similar to the leaders of cults. Deep emotional investment in the success and ideals of a particular cryptocurrency creates strong in-group cohesion. This can lead to hostility towards outsiders or critics, reinforcing an us versus them mentality. Communities who move strongly in the direction of idol worship often become echo chambers, where only supportive viewpoints are shared and reinforced, and this isolates members from broader, potentially more critical perspectives. This leads to the risk of manipulation. Idolized leaders may exploit their influence for personal gain, using psychological manipulation to maintain control, similar to tactics used in cults. These factors contribute to a closed, highly loyal, and sometimes irrational community dynamic, drawing parallels with cult-like behavior. I think if we are to look at this objectively, however, neither Cardano nor Bitcoin can escape the criticism of cult. Bitcoin enthusiasts are often referred to as Bitcoin maximalists. They're known for their intense and unwavering belief in Bitcoin's potential to revolutionize the financial system. They often display strong ideological beliefs or values. Many Bitcoin supporters view it as the future of money and the only solution for achieving financial freedom and privacy, often rejecting the merit of all other cryptocurrencies in the process. Influential personalities like Satoshi Nakamoto and prominent advocates like Michael Saylor and Jack Dorsey are revered within the Bitcoin community. They often present extremely dogmatic rhetoric that is highly biased in favour of Bitcoin, claiming there to be no second best or genuinely innovative alternatives. The intense loyalty displayed by Bitcoin maximalists often results in dismissing any criticism, and despite the proven technological advantages of other blockchains, they fearlessly promote Bitcoin as superior to traditional financial and all other cryptocurrency or blockchain systems. This social and psychological isolation forms an insular community that only reinforces their beliefs, dismissing any external criticism as ignorance or malicious intent. While many see Bitcoin as a legitimate and transformative financial technology, myself included, the intensity of its most ardent supporters can draw many comparisons to cult-like behaviours. So it seems wherever you have a strong value system, vision and community in blockchain, you can quite easily be labelled a cult. The claim of cult seems to be made when one group dislikes the vision or strong moral value system of another's. What we're actually disagreeing on is not the word cult itself, but what the cult is about. It's values and design architectures that we're disagreeing on, and for this reason, cult is an extremely flawed terminology to be used to describe a cryptocurrency or its community in a negative sense. If your vision, belief, or value system is for the greater good of humanity, or at least doesn't intend on causing harm to anyone, can it really be categorized as a cult? What about a group who are vehemently opposed to the killing of innocent people, for example? Are they too a cult for the strong moral values they uphold? Would you criticize those people for wanting something good? Do you want groups who display a strong moral value system to be stifled, or generally want people without a moral compass at all? In this space, it's those who attempt to use cult to tarnish and suppress the reputation of other transformative technologies who are in fact displaying the most negative cult-like behaviors. The dismissing of any criticism, rejecting all other blockchains, and derogatory labeling of communities that have bought into alternative value systems and technological architectures goes against many of the principles Bitcoin was founded upon. If you are a true libertarian, believe in freedom and decentralization, then shouldn't you by default at least respect other cryptocurrencies or blockchain systems that add immense value and contribution to the industry that we're all a part of? If not, then you can't claim to be libertarian. Fundamentally, we need to respect the value systems of other chains. From this, we can explore and grow from alternative values and opinions. It is a cult-like mentality that immediately shuts down the opportunity to learn, explore, and collaborate with one another. It's my observation that Cardano operates in absolute contrast to this notion. Like Bitcoin, it too was founded on egalitarian and libertarian principles, aiming to push power to the edges, enabling financial freedom and privacy whilst becoming more decentralized over time. The emergence of Cardano is less about cult and more about continuing the evolution of blockchain, realize Bitcoin level security, expand upon Bitcoin's UTXO model, incorporate Ethereum-like programmability with robust security guarantees, address the issue of sustainability and scalability, then journey toward true decentralized governance of the system. Cardano's contribution to the space through open source code, academic research, and by incorporating varying design architectures from its predecessors all demonstrates how it has very much embraced the technology and value systems of others, whilst innovating, building its own identity, and sharing its own technological feats with the entire space. What we are witnessing is far from cult mentality and more of an evolution of blockchain systems that has captivated and inspired a huge community to be a part of. Rather than scream cult, you should spend more time investigating to pin down what exactly all the fuss is about. Now, with idol worship, cults and divisive figures in mind, let's talk about the so-called Cardano CEO. Charles Hoskinson is a polarizing figure and divides opinion even amongst the Cardano community that has formed around his vision. If you are of the mindset that the Cardano community is largely worshipping or blindly following Charles, you are simply misinformed. This couldn't be further from the truth. Just how Charles is criticized for his outspoken political views and instances of combative social interactions from outside of the Cardano community, there are many from within it that express these very same criticisms of his persona and social interactions. The real questions are, does Charles hinder Cardano? Should he even be considered when evaluating Cardano as a decentralized blockchain project or technology? And can we draw parallels between other project founders that demonstrates evidence to suggest the success of a project largely rests on the likability of a founder's personality? First off, choosing to discount, not interact with, and actively discourage others from using or at least investigate the merit of any blockchain based on the personality or worldviews of its founder is an extremely centralized way of operating. True decentralization means you are not always going to like or agree with all individuals that have equal access to the system and form part of the community. Charles is only one voice. Granted, a loud, important one, but just one voice in an ecosystem that is fast moving toward decentralized governance. You have to be able to separate personality or worldviews from blockchain principles, scientific proof, and real-world application. Cardano as a technology and the extraordinary vision behind it comes from Charles. For this, he is due respect and admiration. This, however, doesn't mean you have to like or agree with aspects of his worldview or social behavior. Some examples of this could be accusations that he's made towards Cardano community members of lying when they disagree, misunderstand or interpret his views, ideas or direction for Cardano from an alternative standpoint. For Charles this may seem inconsequential, but a lie has strong emotional meaning and negative connotations. This has on many occasions upset sections of the Cardano community. His Black Hawk shenanigans is another example. Not that he should lead a life of asceticism like a true cult or religious leader, but this does trigger some people and is often interpreted as showing off his wealth. Charles is also very critical and at times openly negative towards governments, but at the same time demonstrates a willingness to work with them. We see this exampled in his efforts to continue positive dialogue with regulators in the US, working with the Ministry of Education in Ethiopia, projects in Mongolia, and the latest emergence of the Cardano Foundation forging government partnerships to boost blockchain adoption in Argentina. This may seem hypocritical, but we don't truly know the motives behind these endeavours. Our assumptions, however, based on empirical evidence, is that Charles is inclined to work with governments who share the same libertarian tendencies. Charles and Cardano's attempts to work with governments has up to now been carried out in good faith, and also demonstrates that governments are willing to work with Cardano as a blockchain system. Many criticise Charles for his outspoken libertarian principles and his willingness or desire to publicly discuss them. At times this is believed to be a hindrance for the progression of Cardano, but is it really? I would say that as a byproduct of his political stance, Cardano is able to attract more libertarians, and if blockchain's main purpose is to counter evil government controls, aren't the libertarian values a necessity in both its user base and system? Traditionally, blockchain is directly opposed to government incentives. The moment you don't have a libertarian blockchain, then is there even need for a blockchain at all? This solely depends on your vantage point. If you trust institutions, then I guess blockchain isn't needed. But the fact remains, there is no trust. In essence, all blockchains should have libertarian principles or values, otherwise they are not blockchains but only pretenders from a purist perspective. Although our focus is on Charles, it's also important to consider that Cardano has many other voices in its ecosystem. This is the point of decentralization. Nobody can or should be censored, deplatformed, or denied access to the system. There is a broad spectrum of different figures with opposing views, approaches, size of reach, agendas, and ideas in this ecosystem. Ada Wow, Hosky, Rick, Bob, and Yoda, to name but a few, Cardano is decentralized, built on libertarian principles as a foundation, and evolves from there, organically. As it journeys towards decentralized governance, more and more figures are emerging in the ecosystem. If it's something that you're passionate about, you can too also become a figure to broadcast your own views and further your own agenda. After Voltaire, the governance age of Cardano, anyone will have the ability to further their own agenda on-chain and represent Cardano through governance and social profile. It's important to consider that Bitcoin also has leaders within this community, and we too can be repelled by their narratives, such as digital energy and there is no second best. I personally am not overly impressed with this rhetoric, but this doesn't prevent me from respecting Bitcoin as a blockchain or technology. When it comes to Charles, many in the community share the opinion that some things he says could be worded less emotionally or framed in such a way as to not offend, but this is Charles, an individual, complex character, and one who calls a spade, often assuming or at least giving off the perception that he can't be wrong. Whilst many wish he demonstrated more humility at times, he equally displays essential characteristics and extremely redeeming qualities through his actions and vision that's undeniably placed Cardano in the strongest position technologically, which continues to foster an incredibly engaged, organically grown community. Ultimately, it can't be stressed enough that Charles is only one voice, and founder importance is diminishing in Cardano, and will continue to do so as the Genesis keys are turned in and Cardano's on-chain governance evolves. Voltaire is a great example of this. Many may dislike Charles for some of the things that he says, but this doesn't prevent them from liking or agreeing with his actions and core values. You know the phrase, get to know the man by not what he says, but by his actions, or actions speak louder than words. I think this is very fitting when evaluating Charles. Cardano's journey to governance and success in delivering a formally verified, provably secure proof-of-stake blockchain with pure liquid non-custodial staking, a blockchain that's programmable, upgradable, and highly scalable, are not the only examples of this. Cardano's uptime, proven security guarantees, and innovative projects building in its ecosystem are also a testament to this. Furthermore, for the past few years now, Charles has been splitting IOG in order to decentralize operations away from him. This can be referenced in this example, the Hardfork Company, a recent entity that has emerged from IOG's fragmentation. The Hardfork Company was founded to continue developments, maintenance, and enhancements of the Cardano blockchain using advanced formal methods based on peer-reviewed research. This action is the opposite to one that we would associate with a controlling evil cult leader. Many of the criticisms directed at Charles from his own community may be valid, but nobody is perfect, especially when your impact and reach is far greater. Consistently put under the microscope of public opinion, it's very easy to find flaws in character traits. You can also draw great parallels between Charles and Linus Torvalds in this respect. Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux and Git, is often criticized for his abrasive and blunt communication style. His outspoken and sometimes harsh interactions, particularly on public forums and mailing lists, has sparked great controversy. His critics argue that this approach can create a hostile work environment, stifling collaboration and inclusivity. Despite this, many also acknowledge his significant contributions to the open source community and the development of Linux, which powers a substantial portion of the world's servers and devices today. Like Charles, Linus has an extremely strong moral backbone, but often uses unpleasant language or approaches in order to express himself. In the case of Linus, I would go as far to say that there are very antisocial aspects to his character, which is not uncommon for a computer scientist. As a result of the way Linus has conducted himself over many years, making derogatory opinions about alternative software solutions and angry outbursts has upset a lot of people, resulting in a vast amount of negativity towards him. Despite this, he created Linux and Git. The personal traits of his character does not change the impact and underlying quality of the software or technology his vision produced. Vitalik, on the other hand, is incredibly well liked in the industry, but this doesn't translate into being the best in your field. Ethereum's shortcomings are a testament to this. Does Charles or Vitalik's worldviews or opinions matter when you've just had your wallet drained or smart contract hacked, which is a common occurrence plaguing large parts of this industry? In blockchain and cryptocurrency, when the proverbial hits the fan, it's the genius visionary, careful planning, foresight, technical expertise, and science I value, not a likable character. In fact, this is how you avoid the proverbial from hitting the fan in the first place. This is the point of creating systems that can't be evil rather than won't be evil. When it comes to technology and security, I would far prefer a dislikable genius and visionary behind it rather than a likable character that got many of the design architectures wrong. In many cases, you must, to a degree, put up with the social deficiencies of founders as a direct trade-off for genius and innovative technologies. Now, just for the record, I want to make it clear that I'm in no way dunking on Charles. I've left my personal opinions aside for a more objective viewpoint. We must also consider that when it comes to Charles, there is also a distortion of reality in play. Humans being complex in their makeup means that several factors come into play when assessing their character. One of the most notable is Charles's accessibility and frequency of public appearances. Whether it be through his own YouTube videos, Twitter spaces, podcasts, X posts, conventions, and mainstream news interviews, Charles is probably the most accessed and interviewed blockchain project founder in the entire space. This level of exposure really does magnify everything you say or do for the better or worse, and opens you up for far more criticism and opposition. It can't be denied that Charles also faces many unfair, slanderous, and even criminal claims with no real evidence that would significantly wear on even the toughest of individuals. This will also affect the way he deals with certain interactions. Do you not think that, say, if Vitalik made the same level of public appearances, he too wouldn't show his faults? Or if it was you, would you not be equally susceptible to the odd faux pas given the same exposure? Ultimately, the point of blockchain is for the system to protect us from the people. Being fixated on individuals is so far removed from what blockchain is meant to stand for. The focusing of individuals and character assassination is only a distraction technique or mechanism used to amplify FUD. For all of his faults, we must offer Charles forbearance, even put up with some of his antics in return for the genius he has proven through his vision and evolution of Cardano. He's a workaholic, truly invested in the advancement of this entire space, not only Cardano. Sure, some of his social aspects could be improved, but I would go as far to say his vision is the most compelling and embodies the true potential of this technology when it comes to the constructing and realizing of a world financial and social operating system. The majority of this community, even the ones who dislike Charles for his personality, are still here because of him and this vision. Despite the criticism, his genius enabled him to communicate the vision for Cardano, forming a huge ecosystem full of extremely talented individuals to all pull in the same direction, irrespective of the differing opinions and character traits they may have. Why? Because the prize at the end of it all is immense and way bigger than any one person or anyone's feelings. His conduct and rebellious nature is not what you would associate with a company's CEO, and that's the point. Cardano doesn't have a CEO. Why so many are hell-bent on Charles being some clean-cut corporate personality type that only says nice things in public is beyond me. In most cases, this kind of character is one that only says pleasant things to further their own agenda and behind the scenes meddles in activities that do not serve the best interest of the community. With Charles, he very much wears his heart and opinion on his sleeve. I choose to judge him through his actions and the rollout of the Cardano roadmap. Whilst his most harsh critics portray him as an evil character, Charles certainly doesn't demonstrate this in reality based on the system that his vision produced. Remember, it's not won't be evil, but can't be evil. For Cardano, Charles can be viewed as the project's North Star, his role to guide the community, almost a compass pointing them in the right direction that maintains focus on the primary objectives or mission to produce the best-in-class technology, organic growth, adoption, and true decentralized governance. It's Charles who constructed this vision, and it's Charles who knows best how to communicate it. Fundamentally, he understands the values and principles of blockchain, and that keeps its users firmly focused on achieving the vision for Cardano, which has largely placed this community in the best position to tackle decentralized governance, and in the future, mass adoption of this technology. This is why pre and post governance, Charles is and will remain a very influential person in the wider ecosystem. You don't have to like him as an individual to respect and benefit from the system he is the founder of. If you are allowing your feelings or perceptions about Charles to prevent yourself from exploring the Cardano blockchain, then you really are doing yourself a disservice. When discussing the worshipping of idols, cults, and divisive figures in crypto, it ultimately highlights the need to implement true governance in blockchain. The only way to diminish the control, impact, and responsibility few individuals have over any blockchain system is to implement decentralized governance so that every user has an equal say in the direction and future of the protocol. Governance is an extremely important component if we are to reach full decentralization. It's necessary in order to have an effective process to evolve the protocol in the most decentralized fashion, in addition to placing the power in the community's hands to influence what direction or development is worked on. It's these vital ingredients of governance that are missing in Bitcoin. Whilst its governance model was designed for decentralization, it can't avoid criticism for centralization in several key areas. Bitcoin's core developers have significant influence over software changes, often acting as gatekeepers. Mining power is concentrated in a few large pools, which can coordinate to influence protocol changes. Large Bitcoin holders or whales also wield considerable market and decision-making power. The resource-intensive nature of running full nodes leads to the reliance on a smaller number of nodes, centralizing network validation. Regional concentration of mining, particularly in places like China and the United States, makes the network vulnerable to regional regulatory impacts. Major companies and institutional investors also influence the network through investment decisions and funding development projects. In addition, prominent community figures dominate public opinion and network direction, creating echo chambers. These factors all contribute to Bitcoin's governance, despite its decentralized design and initial intentions, is displaying many centralizing tendencies. So why not just keep it the Bitcoin way, with an almost hidden governance that removes the ability for people or individuals to vote? Well, without the people or users being empowered to contribute to the decision making of the system's evolution, do you even have a decentralized system or governance at all? How do you expect to evolve through the decades, if not from a truly mass collaborative effort? Cardano doesn't claim to have all the answers for this, as governance is a very complicated and even dangerous, almost experimental element to be introduced in a decentralized system. It's extremely challenging to implement due to the inherent decentralization of the network and need to balance various stakeholders' interests, such as developers, SPO node operators, and users. Achieving consensus amongst these diverse groups is complex, as each has different priorities and incentives. Technical upgrades and protocol changes require broad agreement, and disagreements can lead to network splits or forks, which can fragment the community and impact the blockchain's trust and perceived value. Additionally, the transparent and immutable nature of blockchains makes it very difficult to reverse major decisions or correct mistakes once they are implemented. If governance is not done correctly, it can result in centralization of power, security vulnerabilities, centralization of treasury spending, reduced trust in the network, and potential regulatory issues. Poor governance can undermine the fundamental principles of decentralization, lead to contentious forks, and ultimately harm the adoption and stability of the blockchain. However, Cardano's unique governance model, whilst in its infancy, emphasizes decentralization and community involvement through a members-based organization, delegated representatives, and an on-chain constitution. The members-based organization lays down the framework for maintaining Cardano's core technology and developing a roadmap for the future, attracting a diverse group of stakeholders. As a natural aggregation point, or Cardano Town Square, MBOs will enable firms and dev teams making contributions to the ecosystem to raise and elevate their voices on how Cardano should evolve. The members-based organization will also evolve and decentralize as more institutions are formed. This proposed structure includes all ADA holders who can participate in governance decisions through a liquid and representative democracy. Through individual participation and immutable vote recording, ADA holders can decide treasury distribution and the protocol's future development. Capable community members can become D-reps and are elected by ADA holders to represent their interests and vote on proposals. The on-chain constitution will serve as a dynamic set of rules and guidelines governing the network, which can be amended through a formalized process. This model aims to ensure that decision-making is transparent, democratic, and adaptable to the changing circumstances, while maintaining the network's integrity and decentralization. See, governance isn't a one-and-done kind of implementation, however. Just how blockchain systems should be built to evolve, so will its governance framework, an iterative, adaptable process that aims to consistently improve and decentralize over time. So this leads me to the final point. In the instance of Cardano, whilst the initial centralization of power, bootstrapping of the project founders, and Cardano treasury can be criticized, this is proving to be the most solid foundation for decentralization, governance, and innovative technological advancements to be built upon. If you are tackling a vision as grand as the one Cardano is ambitiously attempting to realize, the protocol requires a significant budget or runway and transparent, highly capable team fulfilling the roadmap and will of the stakeholders concerned. If you want protocol issues to be solvable, upgradable, and future-proofed based on years of academic research and engineering, I'm not sure how this would have been achieved without this structure. It's not about the place where you start, but where it's heading and where it will eventually end up that really matters. And if you truly take the time to assess where Cardano is now, many of its criticisms are actually from the past and do not apply to the state of the blockchain or ecosystem today. In truth, Bitcoin is suffering from people turning the technology itself into a cult. Its community pretends that Bitcoin does not need a team or people to solve its problems and evolve with the industry. As a result, no one is solving these problems, despite the fact that the team still very much exists and is largely controlled by VC funds. Cardano and its community is going in exactly the opposite direction, and its journey has placed it in an incredibly unique position. Fundamentally backed by peer-reviewed academic research, its proven uptime, the first provably secure, scalable, and energy-efficient proof-of-stake blockchain with true non-custodial liquid staking that's able to realize Bitcoin-level security guarantees, its programmable extended UTXO model and functional programming language enabling formally verified smart contracts to service the evolution of innovative and secure solutions to complement the build-out of a world financial and social operating system. Above all, its inherent ability to upgrade or evolve. Cardano is fast moving toward true on-chain governance, and it's this crucial element that lays the pathway to replace its founder or founding entities with the power of its community. This should not be underestimated or ignored, but rather explored. So that's it for part 3 in this series, Cardano for Bitcoiners, and a big thanks for everyone tuning in, especially those who made it this far. If you found value in this perspective or discovered something new today, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future uploads. Part 4 will be coming soon. Until next time, have a great week ahead, and in the least cult-like term of the phrase, keep it Cardano.